It's Jeanne Padgitt, but I was married twice, so my original name was Jeanne Winning, and then I married a Carl Lawrence. He died young, and then I married my second husband, Bernard Padgitt. I'm 94.
You don't look 94.
Thank you, we're friends forever. I was born in my grandparents' farmhouse in Cleveland, Ohio. We lived in that home, until I was about, I think I turned 6 in June, and that August we moved to a little community called Garfield Heights. And it was a farm community. I had one sister, she was 5 years older than I. And I remember when we were kids, I'd stick up for my rights with my dad, and she was scared to death of him. She'd say, "Jeanne, why are you always causing trouble?" I said, "I'm not causing trouble, I'm just sticking up for my rights." We didn't have refrigerators, we had ice boxes. Our iceman came down the road in a horse-drawn wagon with ice, and he'd come in with his ice holders and put the block of ice in our ice box. Well, my father would give me 10 cents to go to the movie on Sunday. So that bought a ticket to the movie theater, and then I got a nickel to spend at the store next door on candy, popcorn, whatever it was that I wanted. So that was a really big deal. My father was a good man. He helped a lot of people out of his own pocket, that he wouldn't tell anybody about. And my mother was a very sweet little farm girl. And they adored each other. That our teachers have a great deal to do with our lives in the future. And of course, my second grade teacher spoiled me, so I was really high on the hog. Yes, after having gone through school, I went into nurses training. This was in the spring of 1950. They had midterm classes, so I went in the February class. Well, I was dating my future husband at the time. We were not allowed to get married. That was one thing you had to agree to. Well, the Korean War broke out, I believe, in June of 1950, and they said that Second World War II veterans would have to go and serve, and my husband was a World War II veteran, my husband-to-be. Our uniforms had a high mandarin collar, so you couldn't see the rings I was wearing on my necklace. Well, she opened the buttons on to use me for the massage class and saw my rings. And she said, "I'll see you after class." So after class, I went to her office, and she said, "You're not allowed to be married." So she said, "You can either resign, which will look good on your record, or we will kick you out." So I really didn't have much choice, and I resigned. I did marry my first husband, Carl Lawrence, and actually I went to school with his twin sisters. They were fraternal twins, and they kept saying, "You're going to marry our brother." Well, I knew who he was because it was a small community, but I didn't know him personally. It's kind of ironic because that's the way it worked out. He got out of the service, we started dating, and we got married. I had 5 children, and they were such a blessing. They all turned out really nice. The sad part of it is I lost 3 of them already, but the 2 that I have left are really fun, wonderful. They spoil me, so I have nothing to complain about. We moved to Arizona from Ohio. I could not handle the cold weather, so we lived in the Phoenix area almost the first 10 years, I guess it is. And then my first husband died. He had a bad heart. The men in the Lawrence family die of a serious heart attack. But you know, when you're young, you think they're going to live forever. Nothing's going to happen. But sure enough, when he was 60 years old, he died of this heart problem. And my 3 children, one was my oldest daughter, and then my 2 sons, my oldest son and my youngest son, and they have the same heart problem. I miss them terribly. But you know, if you live as long as I have, you're bound to have losses. That's the way I look at it. Met my second husband, we were square dancing, and he loved to square dance. He himself had gone through strokes in 1 year, and I didn't understand his language very well, but we got along. He was a sweet man, and so the Lord's been very good to me. My first husband, you know, loved his family, and every summer we would take a vacation out west. We traveled all over the West. We didn't come this far north though, but mainly south. The first camping trip we took, my baby, my daughter, was about 3 years old, and we went up to Niagara Falls. It was so cold up there. We had our shorts to get cool, and the first night we were up there, it turned so cold. We all laid down. It was funny. We all had to turn one way in order to fit in the tent. And then if somebody decided to move them, we all had to change sides. After that, we got one of those pop-up tents. We had an experience at Yellowstone. Somebody threw a bear a candy bar, a chocolate caramel candy bar, and that bear lay down in the middle of the road with his paws the chocolate was melting, the caramel was melting, so it was gooey, but traffic was stopped, and we weren't about to get out. The biggest part of my life I spend sculpturing clay. I had a couple pieces in a gallery that sold, but I found my biggest thrill came from teaching clay. I'd have students come in and they'd say, I'm not crafty at all, I can't color, I can't draw, I can't do anything. And I'd give them a clay project to work on, and after they saw it glazed, you know, with a bright color on it, they were so excited, and I was excited for them. I did paintings, all kinds of paintings, which were fun, but it wasn't that niche. And I had my first piece of clay in my hands in the latter 1960s. And the minute I touched it, I knew that was it. In the beginning, because I liked Norman Rockwell so well, I would sculpt 12-inch figures, from the 30s, kind of using him, as a backdrop. There's no way I could copy him. He was one on his own. But that's, I would have 1930s and 40s little figurines. When I was young, growing up, my mom and dad had hung 2 Norman Rockwell pictures in my room, and they were my inspiration, and I really, really liked it. The first piece I ever sculpted, which was a deer, and he was sitting, and I kept that. I thought that's my first piece. Most of my stuff I gave away. I took so many classes my whole life. Even after I was teaching, they would always come out with a new technique of some kind, and I had to have that class. So, I took so many classes, it's pitiful. Well, I moved in here May 15th, and I think the 1st of June they put me on hospice. And I really, really admire hospice. They've all been really nice. So, in fact, I laugh about hospice because Brenda is the young lady that gives me my shower. And I said, I'm not quitting hospice. I'd have to get rid of Brenda. And I'm not about to do that. I never had any lung problems, my whole life until just recently. And I got walking pneumonia 8 times in 14 months. First husband was a heavy smoker. And when he took an early retirement because his heart problem was kicking up. And when we went to anyone's home, he always went out on the patio and smoked. When we were in our home, he wouldn't do that. And I don't think he quite realized how serious smoking was.
Oh, sure. I feel like a lot of people didn't.
I can only speak from my experience. For me, they were a blessing. I kept not being able to do certain things. Now, my legs served me beautifully for years, when I was younger. But now that I'm 94, my legs are giving out. So I can't move. I can get into a wheelchair, but I can't hook up my portable oxygen. So I'm at a point where I realize I need help. And I get a lot of help from hospice, and I get a lot of help from the Garden Plaza caregivers, and medics. So for me, I don't think it was really anything to think about. I had, over the years, have had many friends in hospice care, and I always heard positive reports about hospice. So like I said, for me, it really wasn't anything to even have to consider. Trust in the Lord. He's been my guide. He's been with me through thick and thin. So he's been my guide, and that's what I tell my kids, always keep him first. And it's worked. So the only way I have of expressing when there's been some residents that realize I lost 3 children and 2 husbands, well, how on earth do you deal with that? And I said, I'm not preaching, I'm just telling you, this is how I deal with it. And then I tell them. So I don't want them to think I'm preaching. Today's society is so different than what I'm familiar with. So they said, well, that's good, you know. Yeah, it's just such a different world. So I kind of want to keep it to myself. I got a secret they don't know about. And the hospice isn't the end of things. To me, it's the beginning. It was a very good life. Not without loss, but, you know, I've been able, the Lord has been able to help me handle it. So I have to give him credit.